Brett Baer, thank you so much. I want to bring in somebody that our audience has come to know and I've known for a long time. And I feel like it's a little bit of an emotional day because while we've been friends for a long time, Dan Senor is a former senior policy advisor to President Bush. It was really after October 7th where we reconnect. I listened to your podcast. It's essential for me. Call me back. And your singular focus from October 7th has been the return of these hostages. And we're looking at Freed Square, renamed today after, it was called Hostage Square for a little over 2 years. I don't even really know where to begin with you. So let me turn over to you and maybe talk a little bit about these families and their reunions.
Look, there's so many emotions, Dana, and I know, as you said, we have been, the relationship that we've had has intensified, both between us and many of your colleagues here. I just want to take a moment to say that, Douglas Murray has this line I reflect on a lot, have reflected on a lot since October 7th, which is there are certain moments in history where a flare goes up in the night. When that flare goes up, you actually see who's standing with you and who's not. In that split second, you actually see, oh, I thought that person was with me. Oh, I thought that person had my back. And you're endlessly disappointed. The corollary to that is you're also inspired by seeing who actually is with you. And I feel that way about you and your colleagues here at Fox. You have reported this story just with facts and straightforward analysis and clarity since October 7th. And I cannot tell you, given the maelstrom and the chaos and the sense that the world was turned upside down for so many of us these last 2 years, to have folks like you and others here just it was like an anchor. So thank you. Look, what I'm thinking about these events, it's deeply, I honestly didn't know. I talked a lot on my podcast about whether or not Israel would ever get all the hostages back. And more of my guests over the last few months said, there's a very good chance Israel won't get all the hostages back because at the end of the day, the hostages were the only currency and leverage that Hamas has. So why on earth, they may give up some, they may do it in phases, but they won't let all of them be released. And I will say today, at least as it relates to the living hostages, and we've got to do everything we can to get back the deceased hostages too, that turns out not to be true. And there'll be tons of analysis on how we got here. But I think the big takeaway from today is the power that one person and one leader can make. And there was, over 900 Israeli soldiers that were killed in this war, the majority of which were after October 7th, not on the day of October 7th, means they were fighting. It was the Israeli military forces that helped create today. There are a series of events which we can get into that led to today. But I do think President Trump deciding that he was going to take the chessboard and knock off all the pieces and reassemble it in the way that he thought something could get done was singular. It was singular impact. When in history, we often talk about, do moments and trends and an environment create the event, or does a person create the event? It's like the man versus the moment. And I think in this particular case, we know this is like a fantastic, that President Trump decided, Selena Zito just posted something on Twitter. She interviewed Trump after his assassination attempt, and he said, and I wrote it down here, he said, he told Selena, I was saved for a purpose, and I have an obligation to live up to that purpose. Now, I don't know what purpose he had in mind when he said that, but my gosh, I think he absolutely changed the trajectory. We were just locked in this way of doing things. Hostages can only be released in phases, and as I said earlier, all the hostages may not ever come back, and he just said, no, all the hostages are gonna come back, and they're gonna come back at once, and then when he felt the timing was ripe, he said, this is the moment, and here we are.
Here we are. I have two other questions for you, and we have about 2 minutes left. So let me do the first one, which is about the hostages and the reunions, because you know that a lot of these families and what they've gone through. Some lost their loved ones, like people you've had as guests on your podcast. Any word from them? Any sense of how they are, their well-being?
So we don't know a lot of details yet. The experience from previous hostage releases is that the first couple of days are surprisingly, understandably, I guess, maybe not surprisingly, upbeat and full of joy.
Elation.
And then things, once everyone, both the hostage and the family and the doctors, start learning more and more, it gets much more difficult. So I think it's too early to.
Okay, before my
but let me say, but I don't think anyone's like in critical condition. I think
I think that's true. Just by
there was speculation that some of them would come back, and so far what we know
doesn't look like it.
Right.
My last question is going to be about Netanyahu. But is there a place where, for our audience who has been very engaged and very generous, where can they help for the hostage families? The
organization, I would say, there's a actually the organization needs the most help right now is the IDF Widows and Orphans organization. Okay. I can post that. That is an organization now. You're talking about, just think about over 900 soldiers killed, a lot of orphans, a lot of widows that will need help now, and so that would be where I would focus.
We'll amplify that. My last question for you is, you understand Israeli politics better than most, and certainly better than me, but I know that it's tricky and it's difficult. When President Trump at the Knesset says, I'm asking you to pardon Netanyahu, who is supposed to be in court tomorrow, what happens next?
Look, I think that there's no clear pardon. It's not like the U.S. where the president has this like pardon capacity. So he was just clearly like winging it there. So technically, I don't think anything changes on the legal front. Technically, I do think politically these things have an impact. The overwhelming majority of Israelis, from right to left, you saw it when Jared and Ivanka and Steve Witkoff were at Hostages Square on Saturday night. You saw the just unbelievable appreciation they have for President Trump. He is a political force in Israel like no president I've ever seen from either party. And so I think that he's saying, every Israeli understands the single most important relationship in the world is between Israel and the U.S. And when the president of the U.S. is saying, I stand shoulder to shoulder with this guy, I don't know what implications it has legally, but politically, if Netanyahu is now getting ready to head into a re-election, it's pretty helpful.
Well, all of our love to you and yours, and thank you for being with us and for getting us through the last 2 years as one of our favorite guests. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.